something important to remember, and again, I don't say this hyperbolically, I don't say this to foment the kind of hatred that they have for you, but these people hate you. And you know it because ABC News' Terry Moran literally said it this weekend. He accused, you remember Terry Moran. Terry Moran was the ABC, when I say journalist, LOL, the ABC personality who sat down with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and was arguing with Donald Trump about the MS-13 terrorist that's down in Sikot, down in El Salvador. And Terry Moran was saying, it's not verified that he has the tattoo of MS-13 on his fingers. And Trump held up the papers and was like, yeah, it is. Have you not seen this photo? And then he said, I never even heard your name. That's why I allowed you in the Oval Office. That same Terry Moran accused Stephen Miller this weekend of being vile and brimming with hatred. This is what he posted. He has since deleted this. This is a screenshot because the internet is forever. He said, the thing about Stephen Miller is not that he is the brains behind Trumpism. Yes, he is one of the people who conceptualizes the impulses of the Trumpist movement and translates them into policy. But that's not what's interesting about Miller. It's not his brains, it's bile. Miller is a man who is richly endowed with the capacity for hatred. He is a world-class hater. You can see this just by looking at him, because you can see what his hatreds are, his spirit. You can see that his hatreds are his spiritual nourishment. He eats his hate. Trump is a world-class hater, but his hatred is only a means to an end, and that end is his own glorification. That's his spiritual nourishment. That was posted by a man who portrays himself being an objective journalism. And I think it's just a good reminder of exactly what the mainstream media is. The mainstream media is not just corrupt. They're not just biased. They're not just stupid. They're not just leftist. The mainstream media is completely compromised by the evil ideology that right now is rioting on the streets of Los Angeles. Stephen Miller is no such thing. Stephen Miller is motivated by his love for his country. Stephen Miller has been ringing the alarm and getting a lot of flack for it, by the way, for years. Long before those approval ratings of Donald Trump's immigration policy were above water, back when they were way underwater, which means it was really unpopular for Stephen Miller to be saying these things. He didn't say it because he was going to get the political kudos for it. He said it because of the strength of his conviction, warning that if we allowed our borders to be open, if we facilitated the invasion of our country with illegal aliens, criminals, then our country was facing an existential threat to everything that we are. Stephen Miller's been warning about this for a long time. And this is what he gets in return because, again, Terry Moran is not actually an individual in this example. Terry Moran embodies the mainstream media. Terry Moran is simply acting as a mouthpiece. This is what they think of you. They think that you are subhuman. And listen, what you're seeing out in Los Angeles is violent. You can believe your own eyes when you see it. And yet we have CNN, not just ABC, CNN telling you that the riots are lawful protests with some unrest. I know I've been saying that phrase a lot in this episode. This is where it comes from. Take a look at this.
So there's unrest. Let's start with there's protest. Lawful protest, which is allowed in this country. There is some unrest generally dealt with by local law enforcement, and if there needs to be state support through state police, and sometimes even National Guard under a governor's authority. What is happening tonight is unprecedented.
Peaceful, lawful protests with some unrest, CNN tells us. Now, if this rings a bell in a distant hill, if you're like, wait a second, I've heard just such a phrase before. Well, you absolutely have. In 2020, at the height of the Black Lives Matter riots, another CNN personality described the utter destruction that we saw in Minnesota as fiery but mostly peaceful protests, as quite literally flames were blazing behind him. Take a look at that.
What you're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the course of the night. A second night since Jacob Blake was seen shot in the back 7 times by a police officer. And what you are seeing now, these images came and come in stark contrast to what we saw over the course of the daytime hours in Kenosha and into the early evening, which were largely peaceful demonstrations in the face of law enforcement. It wasn't until night fell that things began to get a little bit more contentious. Things were thrown back and forth. Police started using some of those crowd dispersal tactics like tear gas,
Look
even
at that
playing
chyron at the bottom
very
of the screen.
loud sounds
Fiery,
to push them out.
but mostly
and then
peaceful
what you were seeing, the
protests.
common theme that ties
Fiery,
all of this together
but
is an expression of anger and
peaceful
frustration over
protests.
what people feel like has become an all too familiar story playing out in places.
We can cut that right there. And that, of course, was Kenosha, Wisconsin. I said Minnesota before the clip, but that was after the Jacob Blake shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. This is just another iteration of it out in Los Angeles. Lawful protests with some unrest. Yes, pouring gasoline on car engines, setting them on fire, throwing rocks at law enforcement, surrounding ICE facilities, blocking off highways, wearing the pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism keffiyeh, waving Mexican flags. That's all just what did CNN describe it as? Another CNN commentator just today and yesterday described these protests as peaceful, said that the people out there were just enjoying having fun watching burning cars. Take a look at this.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
Just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. I think that's an ABC clip that an ABC journalist. It's hard to differentiate between the mainstream media at this point because they've all sold the souls. They're just utter propagandists. So here's the thing. This is not speculation on my part.
Group of people, it could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators.
Just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn, guys, and you thought it was violent. You believed your own eyes, you silly little American from some flyover state, you. Here's the proof. We have an individual wearing a keffiyeh, the pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism keffiyeh that has become the symbol of that terrorism, the symbol of the attack that was carried out against Israel on October 7th, the symbol that they actually want to carry out such an attack against you. It just started in Israel first. They're admitting that what's happening out, there it is on the screen. They're admitting that what's happening out in LA is terrorism, and they're calling America the enemy. Take a look.
So we all share the same, wherever you're at, we all have a common enemy. It is the same one. Everywhere you go, when you go down the street, there's the enemy. There's the enemy that works for the other enemy, who they all work under. So we all share the same common enemy. Everybody has the same enemy, from LA to Africa to Palestine to Vietnam. We all have the same enemy. That's one enemy. And it is not me, and it is not you, and it is not them. We are not the enemies of each other. They are the enemy. There's only one enemy, and we all have to work together in unison to fight this one enemy.
That's right. Capitalism,
the faster we learn that, the more we can grow as a people, and the quicker we can get to this revolution and overturn this and have real people leading this country.
That's right.
Does that give you chills? Because that's what's behind this protest out in LA. That's what's behind these violent riots. But of course, politicians, and I said we were going to mention another politician who was playing a pivotal role in facilitating these riots. But before we get to that politician, Kamala Harris felt the need to weigh in. And if this doesn't make you drop to your knees and thank Jesus that Kamala Harris did not win the election last year, then I don't know what will. Kamala Harris posted on her X account and said, "Los Angeles is my home. And like so many Americans, I am appalled at what we are witnessing on the streets of our city. Deploying the National Guard is a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. In addition to the recent ICE raids in Southern California and across our nation, it is part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division. This administration's actions are not about public safety. They're about stoking fear of a community demanding dignity and due process. Protest is a powerful tool, essential in the fight for justice. And as the LAPD mayor and governor have noted, demonstrations in defense of our immigrant neighbors have been overwhelmingly peaceful. I continue to support the millions of Americans who are standing up to protect our fundamental rights and freedoms." you will notice that not a single word written by former Vice President Kamala Harris condemns the violence. She doesn't condemn the assault on law enforcement officers. She doesn't condemn the burning of cars. She doesn't condemn throwing rocks at law enforcement vehicles. She doesn't condemn blocking highways. She doesn't condemn wearing pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism keffiyehs. None of that is condemned. It's encouraged. Because she is taking part in what Karen Bass is leading rhetorically, which is redefining the violence as speech. Remember when Kamala Harris back in 2020 posted that link on her, it was then Twitter, this was before X, posted the link to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. It was a bail fund for the protesters during Black Lives Matter when they were arrested. She posted a link helping crowdfund to get those criminals out of jail, and it ended up that same group ended up bailing out some lowlife who was at the very least accused of being a domestic abuser. That's Kamala Harris. That's who Kamala Harris is. Not one word of condemnation of the violence that we are seeing in Los Angeles. So here's the standard from the left. You assault cops, you light cars on fire, you loot stores. Then the Democrats and the media are totally fine with it. You're cool, dude. But if you peacefully walk through an open door in the Capitol because someone else moved the barrier and police aren't telling you to leave, and it happened to be January 6th, then you are a terrorist. You are an insurrectionist. Thankfully, Americans have woken up to the double standard. But Kamala Harris, fortunately, has no political power now. She has simply a podium to be stupid publicly, which she has always exercised to the greatest degree. But the other politician who's important here is Gavin Newsom. The governor of California is in the midst of trying to whitewash his reputation and portray himself as some chummy centrist. He sat down with Charlie Kirk. He sat down with Steve Bannon on his podcast where he just wants to talk with people on the right wing and understand them and have them understand him, and we'll come to some kind of compromise. Gavin Newsom is trying to get you to forget that he has presided over the destruction of California. Gavin Newsom is trying to make you forget that it was under his helm that California became a transgender sanctuary state where children, if they're suffering from gender dysphoria, if they were groomed into thinking, I'm a girl because I want to be a girl, even though I'm a boy, they can come to California. Parents will lose custody of those children, and those children will be medically transed. Gavin Newsom facilitated that. In Gavin Newsom's California, at this moment, boys can win in girls' sporting events and are. A.B. Hernandez just dominated girls' track and field, and Gavin Newsom said nothing about it. Gavin Newsom did nothing during the wildfires in California, in Los Angeles, even though with just a tiny bit of effort from him, he could have conducted forest care, gotten rid of dry brush, prevented those fires from spreading since it's a known fire hazard in California, that environment. But no, in the name of climate change and radical environmentalism, Gavin Newsom did nothing. That is the real Gavin Newsom. The real Gavin Newsom is looking at these violent riots in LA and not only trying to make it about himself, but he is engaging in the same type of political warfare that Karen Bass is. This is the same rhetorical tactic that Karen Bass. Let me bring this up and show you this on the screen. This is his post from earlier. He said, Donald Trump has manufactured a crisis and is inflaming conditions. If he can't solve it, we will. And then he says, to the bad actors, violent acts will not be tolerated. You will be arrested. You will be prosecuted. You are doing more than just damage to buildings and property. You are damaging the very foundation of our republic. Democracy is in the balance. Donald Trump is using you as an excuse to militarize a city and circumvent our democracy. He said to the many, many peaceful protesters, we want to keep you safe. We want you to exercise your fundamental rights. So Gavin Newsom, look at the structure of his statement, is doing the exact same thing that Karen Bass is doing. Karen Bass is leading. Gavin Newsom is following. Gavin Newsom is first defining Donald Trump's words as violence so that later anything that happens to Donald Trump, whether it's violence against him, whether it's political warfare against him, whether it's lawfare against him, that's justified because he committed violence against our democracy. And then he's lying, which is, of course, the hallmark of who Gavin Newsom is. He's saying violent acts will not be tolerated. You will be arrested. You will be prosecuted. Listen to me today, my friends. Watch Gavin Newsom very closely. How many of these rioters will Gavin Newsom prosecute? We will be watching. We will be waiting. We will be keeping tabs. We will be holding Gavin Newsom to account because Gavin Newsom's not going to arrest anybody. Gavin Newsom's not going to prosecute anybody. The very, very best we might see from Gavin Newsom is a slap on the wrist, no real penalty. Because Gavin Newsom doesn't believe what he wrote. He's trying to rebrand himself as a chummy centrist, but he's doing exactly the same thing that Karen Bass is. He is fomenting these riots because he hates Donald Trump, and he wants Donald Trump toppled because he hates you and he doesn't care that you voted for Donald Trump.